New South Wales police in court bid to block anti-establishment rally. So literally, after letting the Palestinians march across Sydney Harbour Bridge, they're having an urgent hearing to block the Australia Unites Against Government Corruption protest to cross the bridge.
Okay.
The organisers are linked to anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists and sovereign citizens.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting? They're not concerned citizens that have legitimate complaints about government policy.
Mm.
And the key strategy there that they're utilising at the moment is you label them with a label that's distasteful to most of the general public.
Being Nazi or racist or both.
Well, to call someone an anti-vaxxer is very misleading.
Is it?
Well, the anti-vaxxers were anti the COVID vaccine, which now that we've had the luxury of time,
Yeah.
we know that they were correct.
In fact, the Australian Federal Health Department has said it shows no efficacy for people under 18, people over 18 who are healthy. It's no longer recommended, yet these fuckwits won't actually concede that the bullshit they fed us 5 years ago was bullshit.
Yeah, and they're still labelling people anti-vaxxers as if they're anti-vaccination, saying, polio vaccines are bad.
Well, there's an interesting parallel here. If you're a vaccine skeptic, or if you're concerned about the rapid rate of approval and release to the community, when ordinarily vaccines are tested over a period of years.
Which was, terrifying at the time, I remember.
So if you have that concern, you're a vaccine skeptic, it doesn't mean you're anti-vaccine, which is a very black and white binary term, right? Now, when we marched last Saturday in the rally...
Oh, let's say when we stood around because we weren't allowed to march.
That's true, we weren't allowed to march, we were allowed to stand in a box.
Yeah.
It wasn't as though there was no room in the sort of description of the event by the political and media powers that be of it being an anti-mass migration rally, and I said I'm here for pro-modest migration, which I think is very reasonable, and I think most people do.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't grasp that or acknowledge that nuance. It was like an anti-migration rally, so they made it a binary, the same way they did with the vaccines.
Yeah, they just omitted one word, and it changed the whole perception of what the rally was about. And I was just going to say, let's just break down this again, because the next anti-vaxxers, so that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists. So we've seen in the media this week that Jacinta Price has got up and stated a fact that most of the most recent immigrants to Australia have come from India.
Okay.
85% of those people vote for Labor. And we know factually that most immigrants from a particular community will live with other people of that community if possible.
Okay.
Due to price, due to cultural
Norms and comforts.
Comforts. Yeah, like access to their own foods, access to their own religion. Or they're just going to live in the same place.
Your kids will play with kids who have similar sort of values or parenting skill types or whatnot.
And for whatever reason, it seems coincidental that the properties that are affordable for those particular people just all happen to be in certain electorates, and those electorates seem to all vote Labor, which has proven to be very beneficial for the Labor government holding on to power. So anyone who questions these type of practices is labelled a conspiracy theorist now.
Are they labelled a conspiracy theorist or a racist or both?
Oh, racist. Well, we're all racist.
Well, when Jacinta Price pointed it out, right, and it would seem to me that she's no dummy, and she called it out for being an actual factually what's going on, and then she was widely denounced by political opposition as being a racist for saying so. And as I said to some dickhead on Twitter, I thought a brown person was congenitally incapable or academically incapable or definitionally incapable of being racist, but nonetheless she was a racist.
Yeah, that's true. It's very rare to have an Aboriginal racist, isn't it?
What do you mean? very rare for them to be called as such. But
Yeah,
they're
well-
human like everybody else. I believe they can be racist.
Well, I mean, the perception is that actually they're supposed to be the ones that we listen to. They're the original custodians of the land, First Nations. You know, they shouldn't. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, you're saying the word racist is very rarely applied. In fact, definitionally, the academics and leftards say a brown person cannot be racist. That's their vibe.
I guess the consensus is that they're actually the original. We've stolen the land from them, so therefore, you know,
They can't be racist.
they can't be racist because
Make it make sense.
yeah.
But in any case, poor Jacinta Price was hounded by the political opposition, and then her own party decided that what she'd said has
my
actually...
head's in shame. Democracy, what have you done? Yeah.
Yeah, so her own party said, you have just ruined our chance of winning any of the Indian vote, even though it's 85% against us.
It wasn't even that. It was, she basically said, okay, we accept that 85% of them are going to vote Labor, but we're going to lose the 15% that might vote Liberal because you've stated a fact.
Well, if I was of that 15% and I was inclined towards the Liberal vote to vote Conservative because, my economic ideas, my social ideas, my cultural ideas, all of the above, and then Jacinta Price states what is a fact, that 85% of my brethren from India tend to vote Labor, am I going to be so grossly offended by that statement, by that truth? In fact, as a Liberal voting Indian person, I'll be actually kind of like not very happy with my Indian peers voting that way. So I'm actually glad that she's called it out because that's part of the challenge. I'm not offended. And it's only offensive is if her making that statement is somehow not only deemed to be racist, but is racist. Then I'm offended because I feel racially vilified by the statement. And this is the sleight of hand that the leftards play. They deem it racist and presume that every Indian is going to be offended by it. And it's kind of like, well, let's just peel back that first very simplified layer of analysis and say, is it in fact racist? And I've never heard a good case of how stating a fact is actually racist.
Well, you know, it's controversial to say this, but I think we've got to the point that if you mention another nationality and you're not saying that they built the country and if you don't say that they are the reason that we've got such a wonderful country, if you have any other narrative than that, then that is deemed to be racist.
Yes.
Just merely saying that we've had 1 million immigrants from one country in a very short period of time, which is a fact.
Okay.
The reasons for that, who knows? Who knows why all the skilled people, actually most skilled people in the world, come from that area? That's debatable. But stating it as a fact is deemed to be racist.
The key word you've used is deemed. It's not analysed and understood and determined to be racist.
No.
It's simply deemed to be racist by some sort of broad social convention. So that means it's not necessarily racist. To deem something racist, I can deem the sky is fucking purple. Doesn't mean it is. It just means I'm going to say it is and tell you it is. And if you want to sort of curry favour with me or say, yeah, man, the sky's purple. And that's our collective belief.
Well, it's similar to the situation that we saw in the UK where the police officer went up to a man in a wheelchair who was partially deaf and said, did you just ask someone to speak English? and the gentleman in the wheelchair said, oh no, I asked him to speak clearly. And then the police officer's response was, well, if you did ask him to speak English, that could be perceived as a hate crime.
Okay.
I mean, that's great language, isn't it? Perceived. What does that mean?
It's very, very difficult to define.
So, you know, I can perceive anything to be anything.
Well,
doesn't mean that it is what it is.
Well, it could be, let's just speak in very basic language. It could be a nasty thing to say if you're trying to sort of saying it with such tone and attitude that you're trying to make that person feel lesser than you or somehow feel less about themselves because they're struggling to learn English and doing their best, and maybe they've made a lot of progress and they're trying to, you know, learn the local language and fit in, and you want to talk shit to them about their best efforts.
But a crime? Do you think that's a crime?
No, and that's where this is where I think everything's gone wrong in the UK, you have a sort of a legal protocol or a legal sort of system, which by necessity needs to be really quite sharply defined, black and white. You know, this is permissible, this is not, and it's not always easy to have that distinct line between it all, but you do your best. And then we have a second sort of set of rules called the social protocols, and those social protocols are very important as to how we get along with each other as a society and how we function successfully as a society, but they're much more sort of difficult, much more difficult to find, very difficult to actually enforce from a legal standpoint, to have Mr. Plod come in and say, well, blah, 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 you've breached the social protocol. And those social protocols are best enforced by ourselves. We learn them in a family, we learn them at school, we want to be a constructive member of society, so they're sort of self-imposed and socially imposed. And they're very important. But once the police start saying, all right, we're going to shift over and start to be involved in enforcing social protocols and call breach of social protocol effectively a breach of legal law, that's when it's a very, very, very dangerous ground, because, as you said, it becomes a question of perception of the receiver and the tone and attitude of the speaker. And it's like, it's an absolute minefield in trying to actually police that, define that, judge that, punish that.
Let's just move on to the next, just regarding the people that are marching against Australia. So we've confirmed that they're anti-vaxxers, they're conspiracy theorists, and now sovereign citizens.
So last week we were Nazis, this week we're conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers.
Well, up until Desi Freeman, up until he hit the news and you know, obviously what he did was bad. We don't know what the hell happened, but he basically killed 2 police officers, so that's, you know, very bad.
Oh, he's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, he's a bad egg.
Yeah.
Doing that, killing 2 cops who are just trying to do their fucking job and go home to their families after work. That is so... I don't know how he justifies that.
Yeah.
Even if he says he's been harassed by the cops or pissed off about this, then the other, like, dude.
Well, the fact that he had a gun and he used it on police. Yeah, but the point is that up until that guy did what he did, I have had no knowledge of the term sovereign citizen.
Oh, really?
I really knew nothing about that. That was like a new word to me.
What do you mean? Our mate Spencer is a sovereign citizen.
Well, I
think.
I know about the ones in America. You know,
Okay.
what are they called? The ones that have their little packs to run off in. You know,
Preppers.
yeah, preppers. Yeah, doomsday preppers.
But that's different to a sovereign citizen, I think. There might be overlap, but...
Yeah, well, I kind of knew about those people, but the sovereign citizen, I had to look into it, and that just seems to be someone who just doesn't like the government, who disagrees with the government and maybe wants to live outside of its rules because, you know, they don't believe that for taxation, for example, they don't think they're spending the money properly.
Well, I believe that. Does that make me a sovereign citizen?
Well, I think most of the things most of their grievances are just grievances that everyone has.
Well, yes, but then they extend it further. And I think to be a sovereign citizen, you actually don't believe in the legal status of the state, of the country, of the government structures and systems that make a state. So you're effectively, if you don't believe in the state, then you don't believe in the authority of agents of the state. So when a cop pulls you over for speeding, or comes around your house and asks and says, give up your guns or whatever, or goes to, what's his face, Desi Freeman's house and says, oh, like, you know, when you were 21, you sexually assaulted some kid, I want to edit this out because I have no fucking idea what that is all about.
Right. Fair enough.
Anyway, his belief is when those figures of authority, agents of authority from the state turn up and say, what's up? He's like, I don't recognise your authority. Fuck off and leave me alone.
Okay, and that's fair, and I understand that. But let's look at the context here. Let's say you've got 50,000 people marching for Australia,
okay,
and they're waving Australian flags, and we saw it as middle-aged Aussies. Now, how many sovereign citizens that fit the definition of what you were saying do you think could possibly be in Australia at this time?
Amongst those 50,000?
No, I'm saying in let's say in the border, like, population of 27 million people, or 28, how many sovereign citizens do you think that we've got?
Okay. Well,
Similar to the neo-Nazis. Like how many genuine, literal,
Yeah.
I'm a neo-Nazi
Yeah.
people make up the population of Australia?
Okay. Okay. Can I answer on the Nazis first?
Yeah.
I have a view that I've never met a neo-Nazi. I've seen them on the TV. I was at the rally. I didn't see them at the rally last week, but I know they were there. I have a theory that the guys that were there, and there's probably 40 or 50 of them tops. I have a theory that's probably 80 or 90% plus of entirety of the neo-Nazi population of Victoria. So there's fuck all, and every person at the rally that I spoke to denounced them. Nobody supported them.
No.
And they were there, so 40 or 50 of them, plus they probably had some hangers-on who supported them. So the numbers are tiny. Yet the political class on both sides of the aisle, the media class, adopt the narrative that the rally was a neo-Nazi infected, inspired, led rally. And it's such a lie. And this is the greatest tragedy that...
Would you agree? It's very lazy, isn't it?
Well, no, it's lazy, but it's deliberate. It's very deliberate. It's by design. Like they're actually constructing a narrative to denounce the bigger message of the rally by smearing. I mean, it's like the term they call it a straw man argument. It's like straw man means when you take the most extreme example or the least defensible edge of your opponent's argument, or maybe his peers use that argument, and then paint his entire position as being that, even though it's so unreasonable and actually are not a correct reflection. But in that way, you smear and denounce him and dismiss and hide the legitimate argument he has. They did that by calling the rally a neo-Nazi rally. And so here we are 2 weeks later with another rally coming up, and there's a great movement of folks saying, no Nazis,
That's
not
the key
welcome.
point. The Nazis aren't welcome now.
Aren't welcome. So all of a sudden, the political and media narrative needs to shift. Oh shit, there's no Nazis there this week. They've been broadly denounced. How else can we smear? To your point, let's call them sovereign citizens. How many fucking sovereign citizens are in the country? How many are going to be there? And
how many, what percentage of those 50,000 people are going to be literal sovereign citizens? So this is the police. This is the actual New South Wales police are saying that the organisers are 3 things. They're anti-vaxxers, they're conspiracy theorists, and they're sovereign citizens. So they've taken this whole cause and they've condensed it to make it representative of less than 1% of the population, I would imagine. And this is their official stance on this. So this is where, personally, I start to ask the question, why are they delegitimising? And this is why I was saying the word lazy.
Okay.
Because, in my opinion, if politicians take the stance where they call us all neo-Nazis, Jacinta Allen comes up with, saying all her bullshit, and go into details about that. That's such an easy way to get out of addressing a legitimate argument.
it is. And it's Mao and Stalin used to do the same thing by calling their opponents enemies of the state.
Yes.
And everybody's sort of like, oh, I don't want to be associated with the enemy of the state. Or if they're an enemy of the state, what are they saying? I can't sort of...
Well, they're my enemy, aren't they? Because I'm the state. I'm part of the state. So.
Yes, and I don't want to be labelled an enemy of the state, so I will join in denouncing them. And then you have the great, the horrors of Stalin's purges or Mao's revolutions. And I know we're a long way from that right now, but it's a part of the same lengthy spectrum. And it's dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest. I don't call it lazy because I think they put a lot of effort into actually designing these tricks. It's politics 101.
Well, the interesting thing there, and I think a valid point to mention is, yes, technically we're a long way from purges.
Yep.
However, clearly in the UK, people are being arrested, convicted, and imprisoned.
Okay.
For virtually speaking their mind. Now, that would be unheard of 10 years ago, 15 years ago in a liberal democracy.
Can I pause you just a little there?
Yeah.
And I do see the UK on that path, but I think you've got to be fair and say, if you think of Lucy Connelly example.
Oh, there's dozens. She's the most prominent. But
okay, well, she's the only one I know about.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna. Her case she said some really inflammatory things on the social media, right? She said something about burning down a hotel housing boat arrivals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not free speech in my book.
Yeah.
That's an incitement to violence, and it's something she should not have said. It
Yeah.
should not be said.
I think
right?
I don't think anyone's ever disagreed with that.
Okay. All right. Well, so, do I think she should be in jail for that? Look, I think a court needs to adjudicate that, and I think in her case, the court adjudicated improperly and put her in jail for what, 12 months or 18 months or something?
3 years or 2.5 years, I think the sentence.
2.5 fucking years.
Yeah, something like 36 months, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. See.
Or maybe 3 years. Yeah, it was a crazy sentence.
Okay. So I wonder if that's disproportionate, right? Because I think she did delete the tweet at some point shortly thereafter.
A couple of hours afterwards. Yeah.
A couple of hours after. She has her own history and backstory of involving a lot of trauma and pain in her life. So she's got her issues and her demons.
She was a carer. Anyway, yeah.
So big picture, that lady getting multiple years jail for it in the context of the broad, I think there's something went way awry there. But as a starting point, incitement to violence, I'm not offended by that being a crime.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Can we come back to the Australian context?
Yeah.
And in the pro-Palestinian marches, there's loads of folks, or at least a few folks have been photographed, holding banners that say "Death to Australia."
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's not a specific threat, but it's still fucking nasty when you think about what actually that might mean.
It's a very odd stance to take, isn't it? So you're basically protesting because the Israelis are bombing the Gaza, the people of Gaza, and apparently committing a genocide.
Yep.
So your reaction to that is that death to Australia. What is that? The people, the country. What does that mean? Death to Australia. Like, are they advocating that we all should be dead?
Like, is it trying to encourage some nutter to grab a kitchen knife and go down the street and stab a few people? Is that what it's saying?
Is it advocating genocide?
Is it?
Does that what death to Australia means?
I don't know what it means, but it's nasty, right? At a sociological level, it's very, very nasty. And then we're to say, at a legal level, does it actually qualify as incitement to violence? And it's an interesting question.
Well, and curiously, the bloke who held up a photo of the cop killer, which of course we
fucking tool in
so
Adelaide.
I mean, I don't really understand what that had to do with immigration. So, to me, look, here we go. I'm a conspiracy theorist. New South Wales Police have labelled me one. I think that was a fucking cop.
You think it was a plant?
Well, I don't understand why a dude wearing a pair of those fucking weird Oakleys with his face completely uncovered would go to a march against mass immigration and hold up a photo, like a picture with that guy's face and its name on it, and every single newspaper, TV station, every media outlet in the country, the focus of the entire march became this bloke.
Okay.
Right? And apparently he was arrested.
Was he?
Apparently.
For what?
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. Why was he arrested? Because, as inflammatory as it is to do it, I don't know if it's actually a criminal offence. Mm-hmm. However, on the flip side, when the Palestinians were marching across the Harbour Bridge, they had numerous numbers, high numbers of them were filmed with ISIS flags, with Hamas headbands, with whatever,
Photos of the Ayatollah.
all of just the craziest shit. The photo of the Ayatollah just happens to be behind Faruqi, of all people. It's like, okay, so that's where your allegiances lie. Good to see. But the
in her defence, she may or may not have known it was behind her.
Well, I don't think she would have objected. I don't think she would have said, "Oh no." I think she
We'll let her speak for herself. We're not going to assert.
Faruqi's Faruqi.
We don't get sued for defamation in our first podcast episode.
Very true. Faruqi's Faruqi, and no, she shouldn't piss off to Pakistan. We love her as an MP. She's doing great things for the environment. Good on you, or whatever your name is. But my point is that we know that the cops stood up in public and said, well, even though that was an ISIS flag, it wasn't the exact version of the ISIS flag that was flown by ISIS.
When you say the exact version, the ISIS flag is quite elaborate in terms of it's got Arabic writing and black and white colouring and shapes.
Yeah.
So I presume it's Arabic writing, of which I cannot read. So go on.
Well, this is a great question. It was footage of someone flying a flag in the wind.
Yeah.
Now, the police have somehow, I don't think they had the original flag. I'm sure they weren't there. They didn't arrest the guy. They didn't seize the flag.
It's not as though ISIS has an official flag. Like ISIS is this ephemeral organisation with no heart and soul. It's like just broadly.
Well, the bottom line is that they were flying that flag basically supporting a terrorist group. Otherwise, you wouldn't be flying it.
They were doing to support
Now,
ISIS. Yeah.
now, we've got footage of this flag that the police have analysed.
Yeah.
And they've come to the conclusion through analysing this footage that it was not an exact copy of the ISIS flag. It was slightly different. And therefore,
Maybe there's a spelling mistake.
Look, I mean, like I say, unless you have the flag in front of you and you have an ISIS flag next to it, I don't know how you can make this fucking statement that they have.
Which I know they're talking about a legal context, but in a social context, the next time some leftard calls me a racist for flying the Australian flag, I'll get up my little marker and take one of the stars off, take the smallest star out of the Southern Cross, white it out or blue it out so it's not seen. It's not the Australian flag anymore, so how can it be racist?
You know what they'll do? Remember that cameraman that came up to us? And he said, oh, well, the sovereign citizen flag's slightly different to the original Australian flag. That's how you know they're a sovereign citizen.
Okay.
The lefties will sort of say you're part of some nut
Yeah.
group that, is flying this amended Australian. So you've turned the Australian flag into it. You'll play into their playbook. They'll probably have a reason to arrest you then.
Jesus Christ.
It's going nuts, isn't it?
Well, let me say, this flag bearer with a spelling mistake on their flag was clearly flying what they were flying in support of the terrorist group.
Oh, it's about intent, surely. It's not about, was it an exact replica of... It's there to intimidate. They're flying
That's
that
an
flag
interesting one.
to say,
I don't quite like, as a non-lawyer, that going into intent, because how do you get inside someone's head and look at intent? But in the case of walking along the bridge, waving something that looks, for all intents and purposes, like an ISIS flag, except for the spelling mistake or whatever the difference was. Yeah, I'm with you. The intent is very clear.
Yeah, and it's a prescribed terrorist organisation, and supporting them is a crime. So they've effectively committed a crime, but they've got away with it on a technicality that no one can actually prove. Like I say, unless you've got the actual flag, how are you going to prove that it wasn't an ISIS flag?
Okay, let me go back a step. The cop who said there was a subtle difference between the flag that was waved and the prohibited flag, seems to me that if that cop's being straight up about his concerns about enforcing the law around a non-identical flag and the fact that he can't do it, I think the cop's fucked up. Sorry, the lawmakers fucked up the drafting of the law. Like, if a law is that easy to drive a truck through the gaps in its drafting, the law shouldn't be on the books.
And once again, back to being a conspiracy theorist. We've been labelled conspiracy theorists just for the actual suggestion that we're going to attend a march that's critical of the government. Gas the Jews, where's the juice?
The cop said that with a straight face.
So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a police force that is arresting people for holding up a picture of a cop killer, which,
Are you sure they arrested him, or you just read
No.
that on Twitter?
He was well, I don't know. It's not on the mainstream media. All I saw was that, and basically every single person that was at that march in Adelaide was supporting cop killers because one person had a picture of a cop killer.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, that's
But
that's offensive to me.
There
that they
was
would do
some
that,
media report that he was actually arrested. But as I say, he was probably a cop.
You and I can't imagine what the crime was. Like, he's either a nutter, or he's an agent planted by the cops, or he's both.
Yeah.
He's probably some loser who's involved in petty crime. The cops have got him for one thing or another and said, listen, this is the American style and the American conspiracy theories, which I think actually have some legs.
Oh, we know they do. Yeah,
They say
all the time.
They say to this nutter, if you do us a favour and go to the march and be a nutter, and we can use what you do to smear the entirety of the march, we'll go easy on the the shoplifting charge or whatever the hell we've got you for.
Yeah,
That's how they do it. It's easy.
yeah. But the same breath that police force are hearing "Where's the juice" and not seeing terrorist flags.
Well, can I just go back to that terrorist flag? If two nutters, and I'm calling them nutters deliberately, are wanting to join a march and wave their ISIS flag, and they can't buy an ISIS flag online because Alibaba stopped shipping or the net nanny shut down that website, whatever. Like, all right, that's right, we'll make it ourselves. So they get a big bit of cloth, they get out the black markers, the black paint, write it down, copy from the picture they see online. And the first guy copies it quite faithfully and gets it spot on. The second guy, because his Arab isn't so good, makes a spelling mistake. They both march across the bridge waving their flags. And the cops say, oh, that's the flag of a prescribed terrorist organisation. The flag is banned. We're going to arrest you for waving it. Arrest the two guys.
Yeah.
Take them down to the station. The forensic guys look at the flags closely and say, oh, this one's faithful to the original, whatever the original is. The second one's got a typo. So first guy, he's going to jail for 3 years, or whatever the punishment is. Hope it's not 3 years, but whatever it is. Second guy, oh, you're good to go. The typo saved you.
Yeah. Well, here's a twist, and I quickly Googled this because I thought that this was the case. This wasn't just any old guy waving an ISIS flag.
Okay.
He was a convicted Islamic State recruiter.
No way.
So you've got a convicted Islamic State recruiter who's waving an ISIS flag, and the police have said, well, you know what, we can't do anything about that because, it wasn't the exact ISIS flag.
Can we run with the typo? I don't know if it was a typo.
Okay,
but
let's say it's got a typo. Or
I think I'm quite funny coming up with that. That's it.
yeah. Or the black wasn't the exact.
You know the hex codes that define colours?
Yes, yeah. It was just it could be deemed to be light black as opposed to dark black.
Yeah.
Like a car when you go and buy a car and you get different colours.
Yeah, midnight black or
Yeah.
Parisian black. Okay.
Yeah. So this one was gloss black.
Okay.
But the fact that he's a convicted ISIS Islamic State recruiter, you would think maybe the police should say, well, we think that even though he got the flag wrong, his intent was to promote ISIS.
Okay, so the point is, the cops are actually being too reluctant to actually prosecute the laws that are on the books, or the cops right and the law is so badly written that you can't convict in case of a typo.
Well, just it's interesting, isn't it, that when it comes to Muslims committing hate crimes, they seem to sort of err on the side of, oh, well, they didn't really say what people heard them say, or they didn't really do what people saw them do. That seems to be the police attitude.
Well, no. When you say Muslim committing hate crimes, you're talking about gas the Jews at the Sydney Opera House. Dude, I'm sure there are Muslims involved, and maybe a lot, but there's a lot of University Socialist Alliance white kids chanting as well.
Oh, I think those were just Muslims.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that was like, a load of Muslims. To be fair on the Muslims, the pro-Palestinian violence that we witnessed, there were no Muslims. They were just...
That's the point. Like,
they were just white uni kids.
when I went to an anti-racism rally in Melbourne about 10 years ago, and there was no counter-protest, it was an anti-racism rally. So everyone was there against racism. I went along against racism. That's the event where I got accosted by 4 little antifa rats who wanted to fight me. I'm like, I'm here for the fucking anti-racism rally by myself. And you took one look at me, middle-aged white guy who looked a little bit too healthy and maybe a little bit athletic for their liking, and they deemed me the enemy and wanted to fight me, right? And they're the fuckers that populate most of these Free Palestine rallies.
Yeah.
The majority of the troublemakers are those type of fuckers, and there's definitely some angry Islamic guys who are part of the protest as well. But between you and me, I'm much more frightened of these Antifa rats, these white kids from Melbourne Uni, wherever the fuck they're from. They're the dangerous kids.
Absolutely. And we did notice, you've just summed it up exactly, that what we saw at the protest on the weekend.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. When these 4 kids accosted me, I was thinking this is actually really scary. There were plenty of cops at the event, but they're a long way from where I was. There was a bunch of really heavy Muslim dudes nearby, and I was looking at them. I think those guys might save me, just because it would have been the right thing to do with one lone guy getting beat up by 4 people. I looked at those guys thinking they look like regular blokes who would do the right thing and just sort of, hey, take it easy here.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's interesting that you paint the dynamic, because what we witnessed was a load of middle-aged white Australians marching. Well, not white; they were from everywhere. Let's say predominantly white, though, to be fair, with Aussie flags, versus a load of young, masked-up, angry fucking kids, which is, and numbers-wise, the only time that those masked-up, umbrella-carrying evil kids actually committed acts of violence was when they isolated 1 or 2 people with an Australian flag, and they could gang bash them and get away with it. Like,
Okay.
there were no one-on-one fights.
No.
It wasn't like
Well, there never are in these things. It's gang. They're basically
it was
gang
just
fights.
a mob mentality. As soon as they isolated an individual that they just deemed wasn't part of their crew.
To give some of this is completely off the political angle that we're discussing, but just in sort of a trying to look at this like a game of football, because I think a lot of the violence, those involved in violence, see this as a game, right? They enjoy the fight, both sides. And when I say both sides, I mean we saw the neo-Nazis looking for fights last week, the small number that there was, 40 or 50 of them, and we saw the Antifa kids looking for a fight. And there's a video of the Nazis walking towards the rally meeting point, and they were met on Princess Bridge by the Antifa types. Remember that video? It was put out by the Nazis, actually. And the video's hilarious because in the middle of the fight, this fucking woman going for a jog was like, oh. And so she scattered off, finished her lap of the tan.
So they had a proper pitch battle that was like evenly matched.
Well, the Antifa kids got their asses whooped, and even though I think they're fuckwits, and I think the Nazis are fuckwits, the Antifa kids in this situation were actually braver than I've ever seen any Antifa kids be, in the sense that they stood up against 40 or 50 blokes who, say what you will, those neo-Nazi guys are fit guys and they look like they train to fight.
Oh, they do, yeah, they absolutely do, yeah.
So there's 40 or 50 of them. You're pretty brave if you go anywhere near them.
How many Antifa guys are there?
There might have been. Well, there
didn't see this footage,
there was dozens of them, but the guys who stepped forward to sort of meet the line of Nazis, there was probably a dozen, 15, and it was like watching English soccer hooligans meet.
Yeah, like Green Street hooligans.
They met in the middle, and immediately it started, and the Nazis who made their sort of celebratory video put on a soundtrack, which I don't think I've heard since watching Romper Stomper 30 years ago. It's a punch on Princess Street, and the Antifa kids are getting whopped. And to be fair, maybe they weren't Antifa. Maybe they're just sort of socialist lefties, because not all of them were masked, and they got whopped. But they were brave. Like, put the politics aside, they stepped up, they got whopped, but they put up a fight.
Okay, fair enough. Well, as I say, I kind of I'm of the opinion that what they should do is the Antifa guys should get their number one guy, and the neo-Nazis should get their number one guy.
Yeah.
And they should have whatever rules it can be boxing, it could be kickboxing, it could be MMA, whatever rules they choose.
Yeah.
And they should have a fight.
Yeah.
And basically everyone should be allowed to bet on that fight.
Yeah.
And all the winnings go to the charity, like a charity that supports like homeless Australians, for example. Okay. So, no matter who wins, an Australian benefits from it, and an Australian that both causes should hopefully...
Well, that's true, they do. That's a really good point.
...believe in.
Both sides want the rental crisis and the homelessness crisis in Australia to be remedied.
Yeah. So just punch it out and, someone gets the championship. And we could do that every week. And that'd actually pretty good fun, pretty entertaining. And I think that most people would be on board with that concept.
So I'm thinking of that cartoon that came out years ago, the Celebrity Death Match. We could have Thomas Sewell and Purple Pingers.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. And I'll tell you what, mate. Everyone, we give. I mean, you don't really need odds. You just put like $1 on each side. But,
Well, I mean, in real life, Pingers would get his ass whopped. But
well, of course you would.
in the cartoon version, you can sort of, you can gas up the powers of each player. And
like Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat is what I'm thinking of.
You could somehow turn Purple Pingers into... Because it was very funny to watch that video where Purple Pingers was actually advocating for people to come out and be violent against the March for Australia.
What did he say?
Oh, you don't remember that?
No.
He's going, oh, we've got to come out and fight these racists. We've got. He was basically, and then one of the comments was, oh yeah, I like you say, I've always wanted to punch a Nazi in the face.
Did he say that?
Yeah. Well, that was one of the comments.
Yeah.
That I remember responding to about. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty tough.
See, that to me is a very interesting case of, does that cross the line and become a specific incitement toward violence? And the reality is, what that does is his followers, who label everybody who disagrees with them, anybody who's to the right of the extreme left positions, they call a Nazi. Therefore, the morally okay thing to do is to punch any of those persons.
Yeah, just anyone with a flag, basically, who turned up to that march.
Yeah, any middle-aged white guy with a fucking broken accent.
And that's what happened when they were able to corner one or two of them. They literally did attack them physically.
Yeah, so I'm of the view that if you're saying, I've thought this for years, because the Americans have been saying it for years. Robert De Niro said it about punching Trump. That to me is very dangerous language to use. And as much as I don't trust the system to police language, I think that sort of statement needs to be very closely looked at, because I don't like it. I think it's nasty. I think it incites violence, it encourages violence, and I don't like it.
Well, these guys got a pass on that, but Bob Catter didn't.
What did he say?
Well, he said, "Don't say I'm not Australian. I've punched people in the face." So when Bob Catter says it,
That's true.
It's completely outrageous, and he should resign. And
Well, I didn't give I gave Bob a pass for that. I didn't find that incitement to violence.
no, because he's talking about himself, isn't he? He's not saying go punch someone else in the face. He's saying, you're insulting me. I'll punch you in the face.
Well, I kind of like Bob, but I wonder it's because I like Bob that I gave him a pass, or is it because the language he used was objectively okay?
Well, he wasn't telling anyone to punch anyone else in the face. That's the difference. He wasn't saying, oh, I think everyone who sees this reporter, punch him in the face because he just said I'm not Australian. He said, you're insulting me, and I've punched people in the face for less, which I guess is a bit interesting because... Yeah.
So Bob was almost saying, keep pushing me and I'll punch you in the face.
Well, he's saying what you're saying is inflammatory enough that I would potentially punch you in the face.
But it's like being in a pub and you sort of say, keep talking, mate, and you're going to get punched.
Yeah.
So it's a threat. It's like, shut up or you're going to get punched. So Bob was effectively using that same rhetoric, no?
Well, I mean, the thing I appreciate about Bob is he very cleverly exposed the narrative that on one hand, if you march for Australia, you're a racist.
Yeah.
And that anyone that does that is implying that if you weren't born here, if you recently arrived, if you've just got your fucking citizenship, you're not an Australian. And that's racist. That's a terrible thing to do. And then he had a reporter implying that because his great-great-grandfather came from Lebanon, that he actually wasn't Australian.
Yeah.
So the hypocrisy...
Oh, I see. So Bob's answer was, this guy was calling me less than Australian because I come from migrant heritage.
Well, it was
and
implied that how could Bob Catter talk about Australia, like marching for Australia and stopping immigration, when he was apparently an immigrant?
Well, but
mass immigration.
Can I go back? And this is the rabbit hole that we don't want to go down, because it's this conversation only has basis if you accept the false narrative that the media, that journalists, the politicians use, which is everybody who marched last Sunday was against migration, which is bullshit, and we shouldn't even give it a minute of discussion because it's not the real argument. The real argument is mass migration. Mass migration, which means at rates which put stress on infrastructure, housing, social cohesion. There's not enough cops, there's not enough nurses, not enough houses. And these fuckwit politicians keep saying, "Oh, we haven't got enough of all that, so let's bring in more migrants."
Yeah, we need them to build all these. And anyway.
They're bringing in more migrants to build more houses for more migrants. That's not the problem we have.
And
everything's stressed, and that's the point. And so you can't go down that rabbit hole of acknowledging the false frame that they're putting on this whole discussion.
And I'll just point out that they've done such a good job of it that I actually accidentally just said a march against migration. They've brainwashed me to actually forget the word mass, to just leave it out.
Yeah.